LeBron James has a management team full of liars. And we all know that LeBron James is one of the biggest liars of all time in RBA history. But in this video, I would like to dispel and debunk a few narratives that the media and LeBron James's team has put out over the years to make LeBron James look like this glorious superhero and to try to sell him as one of the greatest players of all times. But most importantly, I would like to take you guys back down the LeBron James journey so you can see just how rigged his career was, mostly in particular him deciding to go back to Cleveland. A lot of things just doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense. We're going to expose a few lies from the Clutch Sports team. Now, one of the first narratives that I like to debunk is that LeBron James took his childhood friends with him to the top. These were not his childhood friends. Supposedly, LeBron James met Rich Paul at an airport. He was selling jerseys, and I guess either LeBron was interested in a jersey. Either way, they exchanged contacts. They stayed in touch. Eventually, somehow or another, he decided to make Rich Paul one of his business partners and one of his managers, a 21-year-old that sell jerseys over people who are far more experienced in that field. He wasn't seasoned at all for the position. That wasn't his profession. Not to mention that these guys didn't even go to school for business and so on and so forth. It was all fabricated. It was manufactured. They used that storyline to appeal to more black people, to appeal to the black kids in the inner city, to make LeBron James seem more real. That's his image. They gave him that hood credit. It's just a great story. Took the people that he came up with. It just wasn't true. He didn't have no business acumen. If you do your research, you'll come to find out that it's a cutthroat business. So you're willing to put this kid who doesn't have any experience, you're putting him up against some snakes. From what I read, he only went to high school with Maverick Carter. They didn't hang out. It wasn't the best of buds. They weren't around each other all the time. Rich Paul was 21 years old, so it was far from his childhood friend. He didn't even know Rich Paul. One interview in particular where I would like to counter a few lies that I heard Rich Paul tell. Rich Paul stated that he looked at the Cleveland Cavaliers roster. He said that one of the reasons that he went back to Cleveland is because he looked at that Cleveland roster. LeBron James was intrigued by the Cleveland Cavaliers roster.
After Dan Gilbert said what the hell he said,
Yeah.
he wrote what he wrote.
Yeah.
Said LeBron quit, put that thing up in the paper.
Yeah.
How in the hell did you convince LeBron to take his ass back to Cleveland?
Legacy. It's about legacy, man. We come from a place where two brothers shoot at each other and sleep in the same bed.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And we come from a place where two brothers shoot at each other and sleep in the same bed.
I don't know what type of freaky, dinky, kinky, erotic, dominatrix type of stuff that the bronzexuals got going on in their crew. But where I come from, ain't no brothers who's about to shoot their brother and then be laying in their bed with their brother. My brother shoot me, I'ma shoot him back. That's just not realistic. Whether you're brothers, whether you're cousins, whether that's your mama, whether that's your best friend, you ain't sleeping in a bed with your homies. I've never even slept in a bed with my real brother. What type of rainbow stuff does the LBJTQ got going on?
When you first told LeBron, hey, Bron, check this out, bro. For your legacy,
Yeah.
I think you ought to go back to Cleveland and win the title. What did LeBron say? What was his exact words to you?
He was open-minded. What I'm saying is, in terms of legacy, right? And we identified the talent that was currently on the team. We identified the talent that was currently on the team. We identified the talent that was currently on the team. And it wasn't about winning. I didn't know they was gonna go to the finals in the first year. That was all I was saying was there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity. There's an opportunity. And if you're able to win, it's a wrap.
Right.
Nobody, forget anything else. If you win a championship for the city of Cleveland and the Cleveland Cavaliers, I don't care what anybody get on any media platform and say, it don't even matter.
Rich Paul contradicts himself. In one breath, it's about legacy. But LeBron James know that his legacy would have been in question had he continued to get embarrassed by the Boston Celtics, had he kept getting smoked and knocked out of the Eastern Conference Finals and not won a championship. He know that the conversation and the debate with him and Michael Jordan would have ended. So then Rich Paul turns around and say that basically LeBron James really didn't need Miami Heat and that Miami didn't make him. He gonna say that he went there for professionalism. He went there for infrastructure, professionalism, so on and so forth. If you and LeBron James were so big on legacy, since y'all didn't need the Miami Heat, why you just didn't convince LeBron to stay in Cleveland and win in Cleveland? If you ain't need the Miami Heat, why you didn't go elsewhere? Since LeBron James could join any team and make them a contender, why LeBron James didn't just go to any other team besides the Miami Heat? That just goes to show you how much of a narcissist this man is. Now, in my opinion, I believe that it was all set up from the jump. LeBron James knew that he was going back to Cleveland before he left Cleveland. LeBron James knew that he would join the Miami Heat years before he even joined the Miami Heat.
How did you recruit LeBron to get him to convince him to
I
come to Miami?
ain't recruit LeBron. I didn't recruit LeBron. What do you mean?
I mean, so how'd you get him to come to Miami? Because I know Pat Riley ain't recruited.
No, well, no, that ain't recruit. I would just say,
what did you tell him? What did you tell LeBron?
He said, what did you tell him?
You told him something. You told him something. You made him some promises or something.
No, I didn't. You got a young player like LeBron who he knows what he needs to do to be at the level that he is today.
Right.
And so he knew at that time that he couldn't probably do it there.
Right.
Right, at that moment.
Right.
And so enter, what can I do it at? Who can I do it with?
Right.
Previous years before that, we all signed the same contract so we can give ourselves flexibility. Not saying, hey, we're going to play together in the next 3 years, but hey, let's give ourselves flexibility. And so that flexibility was like, oh shit, D-Wade a free agent? Oh, Chris Bosh a free agent? So everyone started thinking different around that time.
Right.
And so then we got on the phone. And we got on the phone because LeBron called and said, hey, let's get on the phone. Just like we did 3 years prior to that. LeBron, my agent, Henry Thomas, his agent at the time, Leon Rose, we got on the phone. We talked about the contract situation. We talked about the 5-year deal versus the 3-year deal, the benefits. At that time, we were working together because we were all new at this.
Right.
We young dudes who friends.
Wow.
So we were working together and like, yo, you're 20, you're this age, you'll be this age when that deal is up. You older, you need the shorter deals so you can get more money.
We are years far removed from the time that LeBron James made the decision. It's not happening in real time. But when you start to really think back, LeBron James' career was perfectly scripted. Like it was just a made-for-TV moment. Here you have this basketball player who was born in Akron, Ohio, and then somehow was drafted to the same city he was born at. So if we look at the Cleveland Cavaliers roster, let's just go based upon what Rich Paul stated. The Cleveland Cavaliers in 2013-2014 was 33-49. Mike Brown was still the head coach. Now, he said that he wanted to go back to Cleveland because of legacy. Okay, he made the decision, which you kind of screwed up your legacy anyway. You kind of left a bad taste in people's mouths by doing the decision. People burning your jerseys. People were upset they didn't like you no more. You know, they felt some type of way about that. So you left. What have really been great for your legacy is to win a championship with Mike Brown, because Mike Brown had you rated as one of the top defenses in the NBA. You had some of your most success with Mike Brown. In 2005, you got into the playoffs. So Mike Brown helped shape and mold you into the player that you are. So although y'all may have had differences, y'all should have reconciled those differences and y'all should have made it work. Win who you started with. I get it that LeBron James started with a different coach as a rookie, but ultimately Mike Brown is a phenomenal coach. Everybody can agree that LeBron James was going to get to the finals regardless. So if you gained that experience and now you have been under the tutelage of Pat Riley, you've matured, you learned how to win from Dwayne Wade, you learned how to be a better leader. Wouldn't a better leader and a more mature person call Mike Brown and reconcile those differences, sit down as men? If you can forgive the white man and Dan Gilbert, but you can't forgive this black man that you had a ton of success with, we talking about the first time you went to the NBA Finals. So that really should have been a part of your legacy. That was the very first time you ever went to the NBA Finals. And that was with Mike Brown. Mike Brown was coach of the year. You done won 66 games with this man and had the #1 seeds. If we talking about legacy, you could have partnered back up with Mike Brown. But if we look at the Cleveland Cavaliers roster, you had Anthony Bennett, Andrew Bynum, Earl Clark, Seth Curry, who was a rookie, Matthew Dellavedova, who was a rookie, Luol Deng, who ended up leaving, and Anthony Bennett left as well, Clark Flex, Alonzo G, Spencer Hawes, Scotty Hobson, Kyrie Irving, phenomenal talent, Jarrett Jack, Sergei Karase, CJ Miles, Henry Sims, Aranzi Anoka, Tristan Thompson, who was a clutch sports player, by the way, Eric Anderson Varejao, Deion Waiters, and Tyler Zeller. What about that roster exactly that enticed LeBron and would make him think that this would help his legacy? They only won 33 games. You add LeBron James, yes, you're better. But what about that team gave you confidence to feel like you could leave where you already won 2 championships, that you could go back to Cleveland and you can win a championship? What about that team gave you confidence? We don't know. And then not to mention, they didn't trade for Amon Shumpert and J.R. Smith until midway through the season, which was around the time for the trade deadline. I think it was back in January. So what about those teams that gave you confidence enough to say, I can make that team a championship team? You had the NBA in your back pocket. The NBA had everything set up for you. So they already had the script in place to have the Cleveland Cavaliers against the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. The Cavaliers roster in comparison to the Miami Heat roster, let's look at the Miami Heat roster. They had Chris Anderson still. They had Michael Beasley, Chris Bosh, Shannon Brown, Mario Chalmers, Norris Cole, Andre Dawkins, Luol Deng, Zoran Dragic, James Ennis III, Danny Granger, Dennis Haslam, Tyler Johnson, Josh McRoberts, Shabazz Napier, Dwayne Wade, Henry Walker, Hassan Whiteside, and Sean Williams. If you have great basketball judgment and you understand basketball, we can all agree that this is a far better roster than what the Cleveland Cavaliers had. And that's another thing. People always say, well, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the only reason they lost to the Golden State Warriors in 2015 is because Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving got injured. But when Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love were fully healthy, they still went down 3-1. Only reason that they were able to come back and win is because the RBA suspended Draymond Green. Andrew Bogut got injured. I just have a hard time believing that LeBron James can just do all these unhumanly things. So he just so happened, after 52 years, was the only one to be able to snap the curse, the Cleveland drought of winning championships. He was the only player. And not only was he the only player, he also came back from being down 3-1. I just don't believe all this stuff is a coincidence. In 1964, when the Cleveland Browns, that was the last time that the city of Cleveland had won a championship, was in 1964. Now, that same year, in the NBA Finals, the Boston Celtics went up against the San Francisco Warriors. The Cleveland Cavaliers in 2016 went up against the Golden State Warriors. And it's funny because the Boston Celtics were up 3-1. And ironically, in Game 4 of the 1964 NBA Finals, it was a really tight game and the San Francisco Warriors almost won. One win could have changed the momentum and they could have pulled a comeback. And this article right here was pretty much the cherry on top, where all signs and arrows were pointing to LeBron James returning back to Cleveland, which was an article that Brian Windhorst wrote back on February 16th, 2012. Now, remind you, LeBron James is under contract, and consider the source. It's coming from Brian Windhorst, who has very close relations with LeBron James, has been a senior writer for ESPN and been working hand in hand with LeBron James for years. The headline says LeBron won't rule out return to Cleveland, to the Cavaliers. It says LeBron wants acceptance if Cavs return. He says, could LeBron James see himself playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers again? He won't rule it out, and said that if he decided to return someday, he hopes the town's famously scorned fans would accept him back. James qualified it all by saying he's happy playing for the championship contending Miami Heat, but making his third return to Cleveland since his high-profile free agency departure. Hard feelings seem to be thawing from James' perspective. I don't think it was a coincidence that Brian Whithorse highlighted that it was LeBron James making his third return to Cleveland, as we know that he was speaking in terms of LeBron James returning to Cleveland for a third time since he had been in Miami. But it's funny because years later, it's a possibility in 2024 LeBron James could make his third return to Cleveland. So they already know about this stuff years ahead. I think it would be great. It would be fun to play in front of these fans again, James said after the Heat's practice Thursday at Quicken Loans Arena. He says, I had a lot of fun times here. You can't predict the future. Hopefully you continue to stay healthy. I'm here as a Miami player and I'm happy where I am now, but I don't rule out that in any sense. If I decide to come back, hopefully the fans can accept me. LeBron said, I don't hold grudges. I hold them a little bit, but I don't hold them that long. Speaking of Dan Gilbert, he said what he said out of anger. He probably would want to take that back, but I made a mistake. 2, there's some things I want to take back as well. You learn from your mistakes. So they already knew that LeBron James would someday return back to Cleveland, and this was back in 2012.